Okay, so when you think about a global crisis, what comes to mind? Probably missiles and warships, right? Well, a recent analysis imagines a totally different kind of crisis. It's called the invisible siege, and it doesn't unfold on a battlefield, but in the quiet boardrooms of London. Let's dig in.
So let's just pose a question. If you wanted to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, I mean, we're talking about the artery for a fifth of the entire world's oil, how would you even do it? Your mind probably goes straight to a massive military operation. But what if there's a quieter and, frankly, a much more effective way?
You've basically got two options. On the one hand, there's the kinetic blockade. This is the world we all know. Missiles, mines, warships, the whole deal. But then, on the other hand, there's something far more subtle, an actuarial blockade. And this one isn't waged with weapons. Nope, it's waged with spreadsheets. Right, so let's dig into this because it's a wild concept. In this scenario, the world's most critical choke point isn't closed by force, it's closed by a spreadsheet. How is that even possible? Well, let's break it down. Okay, picture this. The date is March 1st, 2026. All of a sudden, satellite tracking confirms something terrifying. Ship traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has just collapsed by a staggering 80%. Just like that, the lifeblood of the global economy is choked off. So, what caused this? Was it an act of war? An attack? No, it was an act of commerce. 7 insurance companies all at once issued 72-hour cancellation notices for war risk coverage in the Persian Gulf. And that's it. The ships just stopped sailing. How on earth can just 7 companies hold that much power? To get it, you have to pull back the curtain on this hidden system that basically governs all of global shipping. It's an invisible governor that, and this is the crazy part, almost no one on Wall Street seems to be modeling. The system has 3 layers. At the top, you've got these things called P&I clubs, which give ships basic liability insurance. Under them, you've got reinsurers, who insure the insurers against catastrophes. And at the very bottom is the retrocession market. Now, here is the absolute crucial point. That final backstop, it systematically excludes war risk. And this is where you see this just mind-boggling concentration of power. A single entity, the International Group of P&I Clubs, insures 90% of all global shipping. 90%. So think about what that means. When they withdraw coverage, there's no one left to step in. They don't leave a competitive market, they just leave a void. And that gets us to the official definition of an actuarial blockade. It's what happens when a risk becomes so extreme, so unpredictable, that you literally can't put a price on it anymore. The insurance market doesn't just raise its rates, it disappears entirely. When that cover is withdrawn, the system freezes solid. This brings us to the absolute heart of the problem. The market, Wall Street, it sees a potential military conflict and it prices it accordingly. But it's completely missing the real story, which unfolds on 2 vastly, vastly different timelines. Just look at this. The market expects a short disruption, maybe 4 to 8 weeks, right? The thinking is, hey, when the fighting stops, the oil starts flowing again. Simple. But the actuarial reality is a whole different ballgame. Reinstating this kind of specialized insurance coverage will take a minimum of 6 to 18 months. Months. The gap is just enormous. The mechanism here is surprisingly familiar. It's actually the same one that drove the 2008 financial crisis. It's called verification cost inversion. In simple terms, it just means that when it becomes too difficult or expensive to verify that a transaction is safe, people stop transacting. In 2008, banks couldn't verify if other banks were solvent. Here, insurers can't verify if a ship will survive its journey. So the system freezes. The author of the analysis, Shonika Anselm Pereira, just puts it perfectly. The market is pricing the wrong timeline. The alpha lives in the seams. That's it, right there. The real story and the real risk is in the gap between the military system and the financial one. It's in these seams that nobody is watching. So, what happens when the system freezes? The analysis predicts this absolutely devastating chain reaction that it calls the 8-fracture cascade, as the initial shock just ripples through the entire global system. The first fracture? European energy. Qatar is a massive supplier of natural gas to Europe, but it has no pipeline alternative. All of its exports have to go through Hormuz. When the strait closes, prices don't just rise, they go vertical. Next up, food. A third of the world's entire fertilizer trade goes through the Strait. When it stops, it's not just a supply issue. The timing is what makes it so devastating. It hits right at the start of the Northern Hemisphere's planting season. This is a direct threat to global food security.
The human cost here is just staggering. An estimated 1.2 times billion people live in countries that are vulnerable to a simultaneous food, energy, and financial shock, all hitting at once. This isn't just a market event, it's a potential humanitarian catastrophe. So, what's the real lesson in all of this? I mean, beyond the markets and geopolitics, this whole scenario reveals something really fundamental about the very foundation of our modern world. See, the operating system of globalization isn't the US Navy. It's not treaties or alliances. It's a thin, fragile layer of private institutional trust. And as this scenario shows, that trust can be revoked with just 72 hours' notice. Which leaves us with this final, really lingering question. We've built an entire world that runs on these complex systems of trust that we rarely ever see and we barely understand. So, what happens when that trust is suddenly and completely withdrawn?